"You're not on the guest list, sir." That's what the security guard told me when I pulled up to the venue that morning. Me, the man who built it. I stood there in my best suit, the one I'd had pressed special for this day, and felt something crack inside my chest. Not my ribs. Something deeper. The kind of thing that doesn't heal quick. I wasn't invited to my own son's wedding, and he knew it. He'd known it all along. When I finally walked around back, through the staff entrance like they told me, I saw Darren. My boy. Dressed in ivory, laughing with people I didn't recognize, looking like he'd never worked a day in his life. Like he didn't remember the construction sites. Like he didn't remember me. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. When Darren spotted me standing there in the kitchen area, his smile dropped like a stone. For just a second, I saw real panic in his eyes. Then it shifted into something colder. Something I didn't recognize from my own son. "Dad, what are you doing here?" he asked, and his voice, God, his voice was the voice of a stranger. "I came to see my son get married," I said quietly. Real quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when you're trying not to break. He looked over his shoulder. His new wife, Celeste, was watching from across the room. Her mother leaned in close, whispered something, and they both laughed. Soft. Like they were laughing about me. Darren forced a smile. "Dad, maybe just stay back here, okay? You can help the staff. It'll look better." Help the staff. Those 3 words, they hit different than any punch ever could. Because this was my boy. The one I'd held when he was born. The one I'd taught to tie his shoes. The one I'd promised I'd never let down. But here's the thing nobody tells you about love. Sometimes it's not strong enough. Sometimes the person you built everything for decides you're not good enough to stand beside them on the day they become who they always wanted to be. I nodded. Smiled even. "Sure, son. I'll stay back." And that's when I made a decision that would change everything. That's when I decided my son needed to learn something his fancy finance job and his elite in-laws would never teach him. He needed to learn that you can't build a life on somebody else's labor and then throw them away like they don't matter. He needed to learn that respect can't be bought. What happened next at that wedding, what I did during that reception, it spread through that crowd like wildfire. And by the end of the night, my son understood something he should have learned a long time ago. But would it be too late? Would anything I did that day actually reach him? Or had I already lost him for good? Stay tuned for what happened when I took that microphone. Because this story isn't about revenge. It's about a father who had nothing left to lose but everything to teach. Let me take you back. All the way back. To when Darren was just a kid, before money changed everything, before the shame set in. I grew up with nothing. My father was gone before I knew what a father was supposed to be. And my mother, well, she did her best, but her best was just survival. No college fund. No trust account. No safety net. Just sweat and determination and a whole lot of nights wondering how we'd make rent. So when I was old enough, I started working construction. I was 15 years old, carrying lumber for a contractor named Tom. Tom saw something in me, something hungry, maybe. And he taught me everything. How to frame a wall. How to read blueprints. How to build something real with your own 2 hands. By the time I was 30, I had my own company. Wade Construction. Nothing fancy. But it was mine. Every job I took, every house I built, every family I helped move into a dream home, that meant something to me. Because I knew what it was like not to have a home. Not really. Then Darren came along. Darren was my reason for everything. When Evelyn told me she was pregnant, I swear something shifted in me. Suddenly, all that sweat and all those long nights had a purpose bigger than just surviving. I wanted him to have what I never had. I wanted him to never know hunger, never know fear, never know what it was like to be invisible. We got him into the best private school we could afford. Piano lessons, tutors, family trips to places I'd only ever seen in pictures. I was building him a life the same way I built houses, carefully, thoughtfully, with everything I had. When he was small, I'd take him to job sites with me. He'd tag along, maybe 4 or 5 years old, and he'd play in the dirt while I worked. He'd draw little houses with sticks. I'd show him how I was building the same thing, just bigger, permanent, real. I remember one afternoon, he looked up at me with dirt on his cheek and asked, "Dad, when I grow up, can I build houses too?" I picked him up, held him on my hip, and told him, "Buddy, you can build anything you want. The world's yours." He wrapped his arms around my neck and said, "I'm gonna build big houses so you don't have to work so hard." That moment right there, I held on to that for years. When my back was killing me. When I was working doubles to pay his school tuition. When I was too tired to think straight. I'd remember that moment, and it made it all worth it. Then Evelyn left. That was when Darren was 11. She said she wanted something more, something different, something I couldn't give her. I won't lie, it destroyed me for a while. But Darren needed me, so I got up. I became both parents. I was at his soccer games. I helped him with homework. I made sure he knew he was loved. And I really thought, that all of it was building something. Something that would last. But then he got older. And everything started to change in ways I never saw coming. By the time Darren turned 15, I noticed it. The way he'd look at me when I picked him up from school. Not angry. Just ashamed. I remember one day in particular. I'd gotten off a job site early to catch one of his basketball games. I was wearing my work clothes. Nothing gross, just dusty from the day. I sat in the bleachers, watching my boy play, cheering him on. After the game, he came over. But he didn't come right away. He waited until his teammates had cleared out. Then he pulled me aside. "Dad," he said, not making eye contact, "I think you should dress better when you visit. People look at us weird." I laughed it off at first. Thought he was just being a teenager, you know? Going through that phase where your parents embarrass you no matter what. But it wasn't just about clothes. It was about me. About what I represented. In his mind, I was the guy with the dirt under his fingernails. The guy who smelled like sawdust and sweat. The guy whose hands were rough and calloused. The guy who built things for other people to live in. And somehow, without him ever saying it straight, I understood, he was ashamed of that. He was ashamed of me. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter. Kids are cruel. They care about stupid things. He'd grow out of it. But I was wrong. When he went to college, University of Pennsylvania, full ride thanks to his grades, he stopped calling. Not all at once. It happened slow, like a light dimming. First it was every other week. Then it was once a month. Then it was just holidays. I'd call him. I'd leave messages. "Hey, son. Just checking in. How are your classes? You eating okay? Call your old man back when you get a chance." Sometimes I'd get a text back. Usually just, "Busy, Dad. All good." But love makes you stupid. Love makes you think that if you just hold on, if you just keep trying, everything will work out. So I held on. He came home for winter break that first year, and I barely recognized him. Not because he looked different, but because of the way he moved through the house. Like he didn't fit anymore. Like he was visiting a place he used to know instead of coming home. I'd try to talk to him about his classes, his friends, his life. And he'd give me one-word answers. Yep. Nope. Cool. Fine. The distance wasn't physical. We were in the same house. But it felt like he was on the other side of the world. By the time he graduated and got that finance job at some big Manhattan firm, he barely called at all. I'd leave my messages into the void. I'd wait for responses that came slower and slower. And I kept telling myself, he's just busy. He's building his career. He'll come around. He's still my boy. I was holding onto a ghost. I found out about my son's engagement on Facebook. Not from him. Not in a phone call. Not in a text. From Facebook. A neighbor, Mrs. Chen, she showed me the post while I was working in my front yard. Franklin, look. Isn't this your son? There it was. A photo of Darren in some fancy restaurant, smiling at a woman I'd never met. Congratulations to Darren Wade and Celeste Rutherford on their engagement. My throat went dry. Rutherford. That name wasn't new to me. I'd seen it on real estate signs around the city. Rutherford Properties. Worth millions. Victor Rutherford, that was her father. I'd seen him once on the news, cutting a ribbon at some luxury apartment opening, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. My son was marrying money. Real money. I just stared at that photo. At my boy's face, smiling bigger than I'd seen him smile in years. And I wasn't in it. I hadn't even known it was coming. I waited for a call. Figured maybe he wanted to tell me in person. Maybe the Facebook post was just a formality, and he'd reach out soon. A week went by. Nothing. 2 weeks. Still nothing. 2 months passed like that. I checked my phone 100 times a day. Nothing. Finally, I couldn't wait anymore. I called him. Hey, son. I saw you got engaged. Congratulations. There was a pause. A long one. The kind of pause that tells you everything you need to know. Oh, he said. Yeah, thanks, Dad. His voice was different on the phone. Colder. Like we were business associates instead of family. So when's the big day? I asked, trying to keep it light. Next month. We're keeping it small. Just family. I repeated the word without thinking. Family. Because I already knew what he meant. I was already being sorted into a category that wasn't going to make the cut. He sighed. He actually sighed, like I was being difficult just by existing. Dad, listen. It's not that I don't want you there, but Celeste's parents are traditional. They want to keep the guest list, very formal. There's limited seating. I said it slowly. Son, I'm your father. I don't need a seat. I'll stand if I have to. He let out a nervous laugh. Don't make this a big deal, okay? It's just complicated. Complicated. That was his word for me. For us. For everything. What's complicated about your own father being at your wedding? I asked. But he didn't answer. He just said something about having to call me back and hung up before I could say another word. I sat in my living room that night, looking around at the walls I'd built. The furniture I'd made myself. Every corner had my fingerprints on it, literally. And my own son didn't want me at his wedding. That's when the phone rang. A woman's voice, bright and professional. Mr. Wade? This is Leanne from Rutherford Events. We've been told you're handling the event logistics for the Rutherford Wade wedding. I didn't understand. Not at first. I'm sorry, what? Your company, she said. Wade Construction. You're listed as the venue contractor. And that's when I understood. My son had used my name, my connections, my business, to get a discounted deal on his wedding venue. Without asking. Without telling me. He wanted my help. Just not my presence. I agreed to handle it anyway. Not for him. Not anymore. But for the memory of the boy who used to want to build houses with me. Leanne sent over the plans. The venue was a stunning coastal property. High-end, exclusive, the kind of place normal people like me only see in magazines. Crystal tents. Silk drapes. Marble dance floors. Imported flowers. The works. I supervised the setup myself. Quietly. I didn't complain. I didn't make a fuss. I just did the job the way I'd always done every job, with pride and precision. The flowers arrived on a Tuesday. These exotic things flown in from somewhere overseas. Hundreds of them. I arranged them personally, making sure each one was perfect. I was building my son's dream wedding, one petal at a time. The marble for the dance floor came next. Carrara marble, the real stuff. I oversaw the installation myself. Took 2 days to get it right. My hands were bleeding by the end of it, but it looked perfect. Like something out of a dream. The catering company wanted to cut corners on the setup. I told them no. Not acceptable. My name was on this. That meant something to me, even if it didn't mean anything to him. Every vendor, every supplier, every detail, I made sure it was flawless. Because I'm a builder. That's what I do. I build things right. The total cost was around $680,000. Materials, labor, design, setup, everything. I fronted the payment through my company's line of credit. It was supposed to be temporary. Darren and his in-laws would cover the bill once the event was done. That was the arrangement. I told myself I was doing it for love. I was doing it for family. But the truth was, I was doing it for a boy who didn't exist anymore. The week before the wedding, I sent Darren a message. Just a simple text, "Everything's ready, son. It's going to be beautiful." He never responded. I should have known then what was coming. I should have realized that a man who wouldn't even text his father back wasn't going to pay his father back either. But I held on to that hope, that foolish, stubborn hope, right up until the wedding day arrived. And that's when everything I'd been holding together came crashing down. The wedding day arrived like a knife. Clear. Bright. Impossible to ignore. I stood at the entrance to that coastal venue I'd spent weeks building, and I barely recognized it. It had transformed into something from another world. Crystal and silk and marble stretched out like a dream made real. Every detail perfect. Because I'd made sure of it. I was wearing my best suit, the dark blue one I'd bought years ago for a company holiday party. It felt stiff. Uncomfortable. Like wearing someone else's skin. The security guard didn't even look at me the second time I approached. He just held up his hand and checked his list. His eyes scanned the names. Names and names and names. "You're not on here," he said, not looking at my face. "I'm Franklin Wade, the groom's father." He still didn't look up. "Not on the list, sir." I could have argued. I could have made a scene right there at the gate. But something inside me knew better. This was intentional. This was chosen. "Around back," he said, pointing. "Staff entrance. Around back. Staff entrance." Those words would change my life. I walked around the perimeter of the property, watching the guests arrive. Women in dresses that probably cost more than my truck. Men in tailored suits, laughing, comfortable, belonging. They glided through those crystal gates like they owned the world. Nobody stopped them. Nobody questioned their names. I went through the staff entrance, a simple door near the kitchen. Nobody even looked at me. I was just another worker. Another invisible hand making things happen. Inside, I could see the main hall through a service window. The ceremony was about to start. People were taking their seats on the white chairs arranged in perfect rows. The flowers I'd arranged hung from the ceiling, and they were stunning. Even from the back, through a window, I could see how beautiful they were. And then I saw him. Darren stood at the altar in an ivory suit, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine. His hair was perfectly styled. His face was calm, peaceful, even. He looked like a man without a care in the world. He looked like a man who'd never known a father who loved him this much. I watched as Celeste walked down the aisle. Her dress was white lace, expensive, real. Her father walked beside her, beaming with pride. When they reached the altar, Victor Rutherford shook Darren's hand, actually shook his hand, like two businessmen closing a deal. Then he took his seat and watched his daughter marry my son. My son didn't look for me in the crowd. He didn't scan the guests wondering where I was. He didn't look troubled or sad or conflicted. He looked relieved. Like a weight had lifted the moment he was certain I wasn't there. The ceremony moved forward. Vows were exchanged. Rings were placed. And when the minister said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the crowd erupted in applause. I stood in the kitchen, watching through a service window, and something died inside me that day. Not hope, exactly. Something more fundamental. Something about how I understood the world. Something about what it meant to be loved. The reception started. Music played. Champagne was poured. I could hear the laughter even from where I stood. High-pitched, confident laughter. The kind that comes from people who've never experienced real loss. That's when I saw Darren coming toward the kitchen. His ivory suit was already loosened. He looked happy. Genuinely happy. Until he saw me. When Darren spotted me standing there in the kitchen, his smile froze. For just a second, I saw panic flash across his face. Real panic. "Dad, what are you doing here?" he asked, and his voice had that edge, that tone he used when he wanted to keep distance between us. "I came to see my son get married," I said, quiet. So quiet. He looked over his shoulder. Celeste was watching from across the reception hall. Her mother leaned over and whispered something. They laughed. Soft. Deliberate. Darren's jaw tightened. He forced a smile back toward me. "Dad, maybe just stay back here, okay? You can help the staff. It'll look better." Those words. Help the staff. Like I was hired help. Like I hadn't built every inch of this place with my own hands. "Sure, son," I said. "I'll stay back." I went back to the kitchen. I stood there for maybe 20 minutes, watching the celebration through that service window. Watching my boy laugh with people who looked at him like he was one of them. Watching him become someone I didn't raise. Then I walked to the catering station, grabbed a tie from behind the bar, and tied it around my neck. I grabbed a tablet from where one of the event coordinators had left it. And I walked straight into that reception hall like I belonged there. Nobody stopped me. When you move with confidence, when you carry yourself like you own the space, people assume you belong. I moved through the crowd, past tables and conversations, until I reached the main stage where the microphone stood. The band was playing soft jazz. People were eating, dancing, toasting. The master of ceremonies, a tall guy with slicked back hair, was standing to the side, checking his notes for the next toast. I walked right up to him and said, "I'm next." "Sir, we have a schedule. Only family is." "I am family," I said, and I took the microphone before he could stop me. The band stopped playing. The conversations died down. 300 eyes turned toward me. Darren's face went white. I could see him stand up from his table, his hand reaching out like he wanted to grab me, to pull me off that stage. But I had the microphone now. And I had the floor. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Franklin Wade. You may not know me, but I'm the man who built this venue. Literally. Every beam, every tile, every flower arrangement here went through my hands or my company's account. The crowd shifted. Whispers rippled through like wind through dry leaves. Now, I wasn't invited today, I continued, my voice steady and clear. But I came because love makes you do foolish things. I thought maybe I'd at least see my boy get married, even if from the shadows. I looked directly at Darren. His bride was staring at him now. Angry. Confused. But you see, I also came because there's an issue that needs settling. This wedding, in total, cost approximately $680,000. Every penny of it went through my company. Every invoice was issued in my name. And as of this moment, not 1 cent of it has been paid. The room erupted. Victor Rutherford stood up, his face turning red. Celeste grabbed Darren's arm. The guests started talking over each other, shocked, scandalized, fascinated. I raised my hand. Don't worry, everyone. I've handled it. Darren was shaking his head, saying something I couldn't hear. You see, this morning, I signed over the entire property, this venue, the decorations, even parts of the deposit, to my company's creditors. So technically, everything you're standing in right now no longer belongs to the groom. The music stopped completely. The room went silent. I placed the microphone down gently on the podium. I straightened my borrowed tie. And I looked at my son one last time. Congratulations on your wedding, Darren. I hope you build your new life on something stronger than pride. Then I walked away. Out through the same service entrance I'd come through. Past the security guard. Past the crystal gates. Into the parking lot where my truck was waiting. And I drove home to a house filled with memories of a boy who no longer existed. The silence after that moment was deafening. I drove home in a fog. The radio was on, but I didn't hear it. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I kept thinking about Darren's face when I said those words. The shock. The anger. The humiliation. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. When I got home, I sat in my living room in the dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there, surrounded by the furniture I'd built, the walls I'd painted, the life I'd created. My phone started buzzing within an hour. First it was my lawyer. Then wedding guests trying to figure out what they'd just witnessed. Then news outlets picking up the story. By midnight, it was trending on social media. #wedding day betrayal exposes 680K debt. Photos from the reception. Videos of my speech. Thousands of comments. Thousands of opinions about what I'd done. Most of them hated me. I read the comments. Called me a deadbeat. Said I was seeking attention. Said I was trying to ruin my son's life out of spite. One person wrote, "This father is everything wrong with this country." Another wrote, "That kid is lucky his father isn't in his life." But some people understood. Some people wrote, "Good for him. Someone needed to hold them accountable." Or, "That took courage. That took real love to do something that hard." I didn't know who was right. Maybe we all were. Maybe we all weren't. By the next morning, the headlines were everywhere. Local news picked it up. Then national news. My face was on the internet. My company's name was out there. Everything was exposed. Darren called at 6 a.m. I could hear the rage in his voice before he even spoke. "Dad, what the hell did you do? What the hell is wrong with you?" I didn't say anything at first. I just listened to him yell. "You ruined me. You ruined my marriage before it even started. The Rutherfords are threatening legal action. The venue is gone. The deposits are gone. Everyone is talking about this. How could you do this to me?" "Darren, don't explain. Don't apologize. There's nothing you can say that makes this okay. I don't know you anymore. I don't want to know you anymore. As far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me." Then he hung up. I sat in my kitchen with the phone still in my hand. My son had just told me he didn't want me in his life. He'd just erased me the way he'd tried to erase me at the wedding. But this time, I'd been the one holding the eraser. In the following days, I learned that Darren and Celeste were fighting. The Rutherfords had hired lawyers. There were depositions being filed. The venue owner was suing to get his property back. Everything was falling apart the way a house falls apart when you remove the foundation. I didn't defend myself. I didn't tell my side of the story to the media. I just let it happen. Let the consequences unfold the way they were supposed to. Because the truth was, I was at peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for my son to call. I wasn't hoping he'd come around. I wasn't holding on to something that was never going to happen. I'd let him go. And in letting him go, I'd finally found the strength to live for myself. 3 months passed. 3 months of silence. Of lawyers' letters. Of the Rutherfords backing off once they realized the legal standing wasn't in their favor. Of Darren and Celeste's marriage hitting the rocks harder than anyone expected. I went back to work. Back to what I knew. I took on new projects. Built new homes. Focused on the houses instead of the ghosts. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, a letter arrived in the mail. Hand-addressed. My name written in handwriting I recognized immediately. Darren. I stood in my kitchen for a long time before I opened it. My hands actually shook. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe more anger. Maybe legal threats. Maybe nothing at all, just an empty envelope as a final insult. But when I opened that letter and read the words inside, something shifted in me. Dad, it read. I don't know where to start. I don't know if you'll even want to read this. But I had to try. I've been thinking about that day at the wedding. About the speech. About what you said. And I've been thinking about everything that led up to it. 4 months after, I was furious. I told everyone, Celeste, my lawyers, my therapist, that you were cruel. That you betrayed me. That what you did was unforgivable. But then something happened. Celeste left me. She said she couldn't be married to someone who was so ashamed of where he came from that he'd reject his own father. She said it showed something broken in my character. Something she couldn't fix. And she was right. I started going to therapy. Real therapy. Not the kind where you blame everyone else. The kind where you look at yourself. And I realized what I'd done. I realized how I'd treated you. How I'd been so desperate to climb into a world that didn't even want me that I'd stepped on the person who'd built everything for me. You gave up everything for me, Dad. Your time. Your money. Your dignity. And I repaid that by making you feel invisible. What you did at that wedding, I get it now. You weren't trying to ruin me. You were trying to teach me. You were trying to show me that respect can't be bought. That love has to mean something. That you can't just use people and throw them away. I know I can't undo what I've done. I know that letter probably doesn't fix anything. But I wanted you to know that I finally understand. I finally see what you were trying to teach me. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every time I made you feel like you weren't good enough. I'm sorry for using your name without asking. I'm sorry for not inviting you to my wedding. I'm sorry for making you feel like you didn't matter. You matter. You've always mattered. I don't know if we can fix what's broken between us. But I wanted to try. I wanted to tell you that you were right. And I want to rebuild. Not my marriage. Not my career. But the relationship with my father. If you're willing, I'd like to meet. No expectations. No pressure. Just a conversation between a man and his son. I miss you, Darren. I read that letter 3 times. By the 3rd time, I was crying. Real, gut-wrenching tears. My son wasn't gone. He was lost. And maybe, just maybe, he was finding his way back. We met at a coffee shop. Not fancy. Not some elite restaurant. Just a regular place where regular people went to get regular coffee. Darren was already there when I arrived. He stood up when he saw me. He looked different. Thinner. His eyes were tired. But there was something different in his face too. Something humbler. Something real. "Hi, Dad," he said. "Hey, son," I replied. We didn't hug. Not at first. We just sat down across from each other like 2 people learning how to be human again. We didn't talk about the wedding for the first hour. We talked about his job. About my current projects. About the weather. Small things. Rebuilding foundation. Then he asked me, "Do you regret it? What you did?" I thought about that carefully. "No," I said finally. "I don't. I did what I had to do. I taught you the only way you'd learn." He nodded. "I know. And I hated you for it. But I understand it now." "That's enough," I said. Over the following months, we started rebuilding. It wasn't fast. It wasn't easy. But it was real. Darren came by the house. We worked on projects together. He brought his hands back to the work. He remembered what it meant to build something with his father. One day, 6 months after that coffee shop meeting, we were working on a new house together. I was showing him how to frame a wall, the way I'd shown him years ago. His hands were getting calloused again. His back was sore. He was finally understanding what it meant to work. "Dad," he said, "I never thought I'd do this again. I never thought I'd come back to this." "But you did," I said. "Yeah, I did. Because I realized something." "What's that?" "That every building I walked into after I left, every fancy office or luxury apartment, none of it felt like home. But being here with you, building something real with these hands, this feels like home." I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, and I finally saw him. Not the version of him I'd been holding on to. Not the ghost I'd been chasing. But the real person he was becoming. "That's what home is," I told him. "Home isn't a place. It's built by the people who love you. And it's built with work. Real work. The kind that matters." That night, we sat on the porch of the unfinished house, watching the sunset. I looked at my hands, old now, scarred, weathered by decades of work. And I thought about everything those hands had built. Houses and homes and a life. And now, finally, they'd helped rebuild my son. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next story of love, redemption, and family. These stories matter because they reflect our lives, our struggles, our hopes. Please share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Franklin's position? Have you ever had to make a hard choice to teach someone you love? Your stories inspire others. Your comments matter. Your voice in this community makes a difference. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about these stories. This is just the beginning of many more tales that will make you think, make you feel, and maybe make you reach out to someone you love and tell them they matter. See you in the next story.